Federated Farmers submission that we'll hear shortly. I believe my husband's been asked to submit now instead of Hillary, or maybe it's the pair of them. I'm not really sure. It's a last minute thing. So just wanted to declare that.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. And I did get your email in respect of that. I don't perceive it as being a major issue, but thank you for alerting that to us at this point. Does anybody else have any conflicts? No? Great. We'll move on to item 4 of the agenda, late items. There being none, as far as I'm aware, we'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the order of meeting. Obviously, just the one report, namely the annual plan hearings report. Can I have somebody move that is the order?
Happy to move, Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew and Roger can second that. All in favour, say aye.
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 Against? Carried. Fantastic. So moving on to the only item for today, which is, as I said, the annual plans hearings report, and we have Graham Pollard here to present that for us, kick us off. So I'll pass over to you, Graham.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As the Chair has said, we now come to the hearing of submissions on the draft annual plan 2020 to 2021. For the sake of everyone who isn't quite as familiar with this as council staff and councillors may be, consultation opened on Monday, the 23rd of March, which was 3 days before New Zealand went into COVID-19 alert level 4 and lockdown. Consultation continued and closed on Friday, the 24th of April. In total, we received 42 submissions, and in comparison, last year, in normal consultation circumstances, we had 43 submissions, one of which was later withdrawn. So I think we've done really quite well this time round, considering the circumstances. The early submissions that we received tended to reflect concerns about the effects of COVID-19. Submitters tended to be concerned about levels of rates increases, payment plans for rates, rebates, that sort of thing. And aware of this and conscious of the effects on the community and the economy, staff were quickly looking at alternative options for budgets. Some letters were received that were directed at all local authorities. The concerns they raised were all valid as submissions on the annual plans generally. These were generally concerned with budgets, rates increases, effects on businesses, especially those that could not trade during lockdown. And then after this initial phase of submissions, we had a pause. And then towards the end of the consultation period, we received what you might say are the more traditional types of submissions, things on council services, fees and charges, general comments, and community funding requests. We've also had some that were looking ahead at what WIPA might look like in the future. And in total, 14 submitters asked to be heard. 2 have since had to withdraw, but in terms of their presentation, but their submissions remain and remain as relevant as before. So this afternoon, we will hear 9 presentations. And tomorrow morning, we will hear 3 more. And those are submitters who could not attend today. Now, I've tried to group the presenters according to the likely subject of the presentations. So, for instance, all the community funding requests are on the agenda for tomorrow. So for the benefit of anyone who is new to this, whether councillors or submitters, the task ahead of you, councillors, is to hear these presentations with an open mind, and tomorrow deliberate on those you've heard and all the submissions that you've read. I believe there is some additional presentation material that's been sent through to us, and sent on to you as well. The presenters have been advised to aim for a maximum presentation length of 5 to 6 minutes. So this will allow time for your questions afterwards. And obviously any extension of time to complete questions is at the discretion of the chair. All presenters obviously are appearing via Zoom. Hopefully everyone's in place when their time comes. I also ask you to be aware that some presenters may have other submitters with them watching in the same room, or they may be colleagues. A word for the submitters that anyone else in the room shouldn't be joining in the presentation. And of course, there may be others watching via the live stream. Some submitters may wish to stay in the meeting afterwards, in which case I have suggested that they turn off the cameras and microphones, but that is not essential. There we go. Over to you, Chair, and hopefully we have a presenter in place, which should, by my agenda, be Jenny Williams. Chair.
Thank you, Graham. I just wanted to quickly remind elected members that the questioning, if it could be sort of pretty clear and succinct, that way we can best use our submitters' time really effectively and make it a more efficient process. That would be really much appreciated. So if we have our first submitter, Jenny Williams, is she present? She's affectionately known as submitter number 41, which is very impersonal, but Sam, is she around?
No, Jenny hasn't joined the meeting yet, sorry.
Okay.
We haven't heard anything further, unfortunately.
Okay. So we're 9 past 1 right now.
He's on the screen.
We have Jenny Dacomb's here.
Her hand, Susan.
That's not Jenny Williams. That's Jenny Dacomb from Cambridge Neighbourhood Support.
All right.
If you'd like me to, I can do mine if it'll save you time. It's up to you. I'm here if you need me, or I can come back later.
I think that would be a sensible use of time. Are you happy with that, Graham?
Yes, I'm happy.
And Sam, you're fine with that? Great. All right. Thank you very much, Jenny. Please take it away, and thank you for accommodating the changed order.
Thank you. Just so my board members obviously won't know the change in time, and I think Jocelyn Cooney was going to step on board and Tony G, just in case there were any extra questions, but I'm sure if there is anything I can answer it anyhow. Right, so I presume everybody's received my my written information, and I'm not going to go through that all over again. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the council. I only started this role in February, but I do understand that we've been receiving money since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you for your support in the past. And I do understand that you're under a strict budget, so I'm sure you've got people asking you for money from all angles. My main request is during COVID-19, I was seconded by Civil Defence, and my sort of hours went from 25 to 50 or 60 hours a week. It was very beneficial, and as you've seen from my submission, we managed to organise an amazing amount of volunteers from our area. So hands-on and hands and ears on the ground was fantastic, and a very beneficial relationship, lots of learning curves all around, but I think something that will last for many years to come and will only strengthen. Because of this, we have a very limited budget already, and with me only starting in February, I have volunteered a lot of my time for that process. Just can't sustain my salary for those extra hours, but maybe some consideration moving forward, because I sort of don't know where to get any extra help in that regard. And I'm also officially the fundraiser, so funding, as you're aware, is a little bit depleted all over the place at the moment. So as it stands at the moment, I probably have a salary until November. But in saying that, I have Te Waka on board. I'm meeting with them. They're coming to help me, and these endless people who've put up their hands to come and do a business strategy plan with me. So I'm very confident that we'll be fine, and I'm going to give it my best to get there. But just moving forward, any additional funding would be most appreciated. As you'll all know from the newspaper, our numbers have just grown and grown. And sorry, I'm not shaky, it's just something's coming across a bit weird. I don't know what it's sounding like to you. Our numbers have grown during COVID-19, actually in a very beneficial way for us. We actually engage with so many of the elderly who normally would be isolated, and they've come onto the radar, onto the network. So moving forward, I think we gained about 460 members in a month, which I still have to actually engage with quite a few of them. Obviously, during COVID-19, I couldn't physically go and see people, but a lot of them have registered and are now going to set up new groups in the neighbourhood, which is fantastic. The one thing I really would appreciate some help, if possible, is, as I mentioned, we have to put these new signs up. So they're really lovely. They're supported by the police, and this is our new logo, which has come out. So you might be aware of the previous ones with the yellow and blue. They're quite faded all over the place. I managed to put up about 6 of these before lockdown, and the support to the new ones been absolutely fantastic. It's quite out there and funky, and nationwide there's 67 areas that are now putting them up, and it's being recognised as quite a significant support for neighbours. That we would be really happy if Waipa wanted to stick their logo down there. So as a sort of business partner moving forward, absolutely happy. Head office would be very supportive of that from Wellington as well, and would actually encourage all the other neighbourhood supports to work with their council in the same way. Working very closely with the police at the moment, and Deb Thurgood has just put out a brochure, which unfortunately I couldn't get to you on time, but I can submit it later on. In this, her and I are really trying to clamp down on drug areas in Cambridge, and we're putting out beneficial flyers to members of the public about comes from her, but it's sort of what to look out for, who to contact, not to engage with anybody that you suspect may be cooking or anything like that. Out of the woodwork during COVID-19 came a lot of this. A lot of people came to light who might have just submerged into the public during normal times. So it's actually been quite a good thing as well that we are aware of a lot more people in the neighbourhood than we thought initially who were dealing. So Deb and I work very proactively now. I also only have 25 hours a week to spread myself quite far and wide with her, but I feel it's very beneficial for us at the moment to just try and make those people aware that we're aware of them in the neighbourhoods, and they're not just going to be left to carry on unnoticed. So it's quite significant. Obviously working with our community patrollers as well, who work very closely with the police and myself. They've also actually just been asked to stand down at the moment until I think we move to a safer level for them. Many of them are in their 70s. So also with them, a number of new people have come forward during COVID-19 wanting to assist them. So all in all, just making a far more safer, resilient Cambridge for everybody. And one of my main projects moving forward this year is with the high school. So the head boy and head girl and their executive committee have come forward to me, and we identified a major need in most of the volunteers, unfortunately, with Lions and those sort of places, were over 70 and had to go into lockdown. So we had to source younger volunteers, and a lot of them have come through, wonderful youth have come through, very keen to buddy up with the elderly still during winter, to do gardening, to just be supportive for them. A lot of the elderly are trying to do the online shopping, which has become a bit of a nightmare for them. So the youngsters within legal parameters will be assisting them with working out how to do online grocery shopping, going over and over and over it if necessary, with a lot of patience and kindness, so that they can feel more self-sufficient and just be better off in winter generally. So I don't know if I've taken up enough of your time. That covers the basics.
That's fantastic, Jenny. Thank you very much for that. Have I any questions out there for Jenny and her fantastic organisation in respect of her submission or any of our other work? Mindful of the time that we have left. Liz.
Yeah, hey, look, Jenny, I just wanted to say, you know, the work that you have been able to perform in our community over the COVID period has just been outstanding. Yeah, I know you've gone above and beyond, so I just really wanted to acknowledge that first and foremost. And your organisation does fill a really important role, you know, in our district. So, yeah, just thanks for everything you've done. I don't have a question for you, but I just know you've only been on board since February. I've seen you at lots of different functions and, as I said, above and beyond. So thank you very much for all the efforts you've made today.
Well, thanks, Liz. Thank you.
That's a sentiment shared, I'm sure, across the whole committee. Roger, have a question? You've had to unmute yourself. Oh. Yes.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Jenny, you can hear me now. Can you?
Yes, I can.
Good.
Hello, Roger.
Yes. Thank you very much for that submission. We are aware that through this COVID crisis, a lot of the traditional sources of funding have really dried up. Has this impacted you to a substantial degree?
Very much so. I had just put in a submission before with Pub Charity. Obviously, that's closed down. I'd put in about 4 other submissions and they've all just ceased. It's just stopped at the moment. So I'm being quite proactive and looking around. I think there's still a lot of funding out there, but it's going to go far and wide. So the normal sources, yes, have definitely dried up.
And in dollar terms, how much has that affected you? Can you put a figure on it?
Yes, probably about 25,000.
Oh, that's a considerable impact, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Susan, Susan?
Hazel, yes.
Can I just quickly?
Okay.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Are you also integrated into the health and welfare service group that works in Cambridge?
I do connect in with them. I connect with a lot of people. Unfortunately, we don't qualify for any funding in that regard. How I am connected is during COVID-19, a lot of people who were mentally unstable actually emailed me, and their anxiety levels were getting higher and higher. They didn't actually feel confident picking up their phone and dialing an 0800 number. So in the depths of despair, they sent an email out, which was absolutely brilliant because it had all the information we needed. I could flick it straight on to whoever the services were that were involved. So yes, we are connected in that way.
That's
But
what was really meaning, Jenny, was with age concern. And
oh yes, right.
Other groups that grey power. You've got a strong grey power group over there. So
Yes.
just so that we don't have double, you know, put to the same service that each group is providing. I think those are the things that we're trying to avoid in the future. So do you converse with them and do you share information?
Yes, so with Brent Nielsen at Age Concern, him and I are on the Seacoast Committee together, and we integrate all the time. With Grey Power, not so much yet. I had a meeting set up with them with Deb from the police, and we were going to go and start working with them. My meeting is now hopefully coming up in the next month, but I would actively like to engage with them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Thank you very much, Jenny, and thank you very much for the time. And as I say, echo Liz's comments and sentiments around the work that your organisation does, and obviously you personally. It's been much appreciated.
And if I can just acknowledge the meme wiper as well for there were various faces on here that actually worked in with me as well, sharing information, and it made it a very strong network. So thank you for all those who helped as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. You're welcome to stay on and listen if you want to, but we're going to move on to our next submitter now.
I'm going to go. Thank you.
Thank you. The next submission comes from the Waikato Federated Farmers, and I believe we have Andrew Raymer and or Hilary Walker. Their submission appears on page 113 of Appendix 1, or if you're working off Appendix 2, it's on pages 33 to 36. So who have we here? I see Hilary in the corner. You're muted. If you want to change that, just unmute yourself and we can hear you. Welcome.
You're still muted. There we go. Hilary's going to take the lead on this. I'm going to follow.
Excellent. Oh, sorry, Hilary, I might have to interrupt you there. We can't hear you very well, or is that just me?
No, I've been on another Zoom meeting and they had said the same. Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get a bit closer. Yes, so good afternoon. Thank you for your time. My name is Hilary Walker and I'm a Senior Policy Advisor with Federated Farmers. So with me today co-presenting is Andrew, although I'm sure he does need no introduction. He's our Team Branch Chair. John Searle is our IPAR Chair, but he extends his apologies. So we understand that our submission will have been read and we don't intend to revisit that in full. I've read the staff comments and recommendations which relate to our submission and extend my support. We commend Council on the hard work which has been undertaken in a very short time and under very difficult circumstances. We appreciate that Council has not adopted a business as usual approach at this time and is carefully considering all options. We understand the importance of maintaining and investing in core service infrastructure and accept that that can come with increased operating costs and subsequent rate increases. We also extend our compliments to the Council with regards to hitting the ground running and pitching 23 shovel-ready projects to government.
Hilary, can I just interrupt you for a minute there? Is everybody having problems still hearing Hilary?
Yes.
You might have to sit a little closer because I think you sort of drift in and out, Hilary. Sorry to be a pain.
How about that? Is that better for everyone?
That's better. And I think as you move, sometimes I think it sounds like your microphone's quite sensitive. It has a very small patch.
Okay.
Sorry.
How far back? Shall I just continue or?
Brilliant. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we extend our compliments to Council with regards to hitting the ground running with your shovel-ready projects. We agree that it is the appropriate way to stimulate jobs and to boost the economy. So we're also here just to remind Council that we are keen to be included as a stakeholder party for the upcoming long-term plan consultations. We know that it's been developed and I was concerned that we may have, although this could be an issue on our side, but we may have missed some consultation processes already. So it's just to record that we are keen to be involved and I'm probably the best lead for that going forward. And yes, unless Andrew had anything else to comment on, then we're really in your hands and open to questions.
Wonderful.
My comments really just back that up, Hilary, and it's just, you know, even though farming was an essential service over the COVID period, it doesn't mean it's not going to be economically impacted. In fact, quite significantly this year, up to sort of 20%, so maybe even more. So yeah, just to make sure Council is aware that it's not all plain sailing on farm because of COVID. Just because it was an essential service, it's going to have a pretty severe economic impact. It'd be nice to make a little bit more money so we can buy you a new microphone, Hilary.
Classic. So does anybody have any questions there for either Hilary or the cheeky Andrew Raymer? Andrew Brown. Unmute yourself, mate. Yeah,
I've done that. Yeah, not so much a question. I mean, your submission's very clear, I think, and we'll certainly take it on board. And your comments re the long-term plan you'll definitely be advised of all the consultation that's going to take place on that. And I'm sure you're aware that as local councils, we only have rates at our, well, basically we only have rates at our disposal as a source of income, and it's a pretty blunt instrument. I'd certainly agree with you. Yeah, there.
Wonderful. Yeah, great. Thank you for your comments there, Andrew. Has anybody else got anything they wish to comment or ask of either of these attendees? No, nobody there. Excellent. Look, we're running ahead of time. Thank you so much, Hilary and Andrew. Thank you for your detailed submission, and we'll certainly take on board some of the suggestions you've raised.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. As I say, you're welcome to hang around if you like, but we're moving on to the next submitter. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, everybody.
So next we have, and we're 2 minutes ahead of schedule, but we have submitter number 11, which is Pete McLaughlin from Consul Consultants. I see you floating around there somewhere, Pete. Yes, at the bottom there. For councillors, that Pete's submission appears on page 15 of Appendix 1, or if you're working off Appendix 2, it's page 15 to 16. Take it away, Pete.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Pete McLaughlin. I'm Managing Director of Consul Surveys, a multidiscipline firm covering surveying, planning and engineering. Our firm's been based in Cambridge for over 50 years. Most of our work is carried out in the Waipaha district with a focus on Cambridge and the rural surrounds. We have clients ranging from mums and dads rearranging titles on their family farms to young couples undertaking their first subdivision of their own property in town. We also deal with large developers responsible for Cambridge's premier subdivisions such as Pukakura, St Kilda and Norfolk Downs. The focus of our business is on quality outcomes, getting it done and getting it done right. We're not about taking the easiest option or shortcutting. We're big on transparency and understanding the detail. Once we understand it, it brings clarity, appreciation, which we can then pass on to our clients. Key component of my submission was obtaining clarity around how the fees and charges have been calculated, directly in relation to consenting activities. In our submission, we challenged Council to give us information on how the fees and charges were calculated. What were the costs of the labour, materials, overheads, capital, and how they go into making up the hourly rates. If you've read the Council comments on the submission, you'll see that they have not been answered with generalised statements such as staff rates follow local government best practice and they are in line with other councils' charge rates. We did a bit of an analysis on the 2019-2020 year because that was the one we had the easiest comparison on, because not everyone's at the same stage that Waipaha is. And Waipaha District Council was certainly, if not the most expensive, pretty much the second most expensive of the local councils. And we'd like to understand why a planner in Waipaha is $182 an hour, and in Waikato they're $150 an hour, and in Thames they're $165 an hour, and in Hamilton City they're $175 an hour. So why is Waipaha more expensive, and why are we increasing again? Similar story plays out in development engineering. Again, Waipaha are more expensive and increasing again. I believe that Waipaha engineers and planners have the same skill and qualifications as other councils, so why the different rates? This is why we're interested to know how the hourly rates are calculated, so we can understand why they are higher. So if you want further facts and figures, refer to the submission. So late last year, we actually met with senior council planning staff to confirm whether there was anything that we could do to improve our applications and therefore processing time, because we'd been concerned with the amount of hours that were being charged and then invoiced to our clients. We were told at that time that our applications were of a high standard, and that is reinforced by the low number of further information requests we receive. When COGS will receive any invoice from council, as the agent, we are obliged to look through it and determine whether it's appropriate and then pass it on to our clients. We need to look at the detail, understand the detail, because ultimately those questions come back to us. We're not unreasonable, but we do know what it takes to get the job done, so that we're more than happy to raise questions when we feel charges are not in line with the complexity of the application. In conclusion, our main concerns lies with the lack of transparencies in Waipa's hourly rates in regards to processing of resource consent in comparison with other councils. And as I said, to date, we've been unable to understand how these are calculated. The words provided in the staff comments and the submissions have not increased our understanding. We're also unclear on how these rates are higher than most private practice professional firms are justified when there's no profit component in the council charging. Whilst the submission is focused on hourly rates, I'm more interested in what can be done in an hour. So if there's any ways that we can increase productivity, we're always happy to take on feedback. Thank you.
Okay, look, thank you very much for that, Pete. I wonder if it's probably appropriate to either ask Tony de Quickfall to answer this briefly, or whether you'd rather take that offline at the moment. I'm not sure, Tony. How would you prefer to deal with that?
They're valid questions, so I'm happy to have a go at, I guess, answering Pete's queries here, if you're happy for me to do that. So a couple of things have been raised. So the fees and charges have an underlying funding policy, which I guess is the breakdown of overheads versus direct costs. So in the review this year, we weren't asked to undertake a review of our funding policy that underlies the fees and charges. The review, like just about every annual review, looked at the current fees and charges and made an informed assessment on whether under the RMA they are still actual and reasonable. And that's what we're allowed to recover under the RMA. So I guess the first point is it wasn't an overhaul, it wasn't a comprehensive review of the funding policy that underlies the fees and charges. What I mean by that is, what are the overheads? What are the direct costs? So that's probably the first point. So that's why the information that we couldn't provide wasn't needed in our view, because it wasn't a review of the funding policy that underlies the fees and charges. So if you take that as the first principle, we then went through all the fees and charges quite comprehensively. We ran a test through whether we felt they were actual and reasonable, and we're aware of some challenges around fees and charges that have come through from different consultants and different developers through the year. So we took those into account. We did benchmark against councils, a number of like-for-like councils. I can't remember, sorry, Pete, which ones we actually looked at. But we did do a benchmark against other councils, and we came to the conclusion that we were pretty much on par. And in fact, there was, in our view, justification for a slight review upwards. So I'd be interested just to know around that benchmarking, and I can dig that out probably offline if you want me to follow up on who we benchmarked against. You made the comment that the fees and charges are higher than most private sector. That's not our assessment. Our assessment is that they meet the requirements of the Resource Management Act and also the Department of Internal Affairs, where the expectation is that public sector rates are discounted when benchmarked against private sector rates. So that's the underlying financial policy, again, that we didn't review. But my understanding is our fees and charges do incorporate a discount factor when compared with the private sector. And of course, it's I guess an exercise of averaging. So it really depends on which consultants and which regions and which areas you look at in terms of the benchmarking. So again, we haven't gone down that exercise because we weren't looking at the underlying principles around it. We're keen for efficiencies as well. And so Pete's right that we did have a meeting to look at how we can improve processes at our end as well. And what we've adopted is, I suppose, a continuous improvement process. We did have, the last 6 months or the last 8 months, we've had some staffing changes. So we've rebuilt the department and rebuilt the consent team. So we've had new staff come on board with new thinking. And we are very keen to look at efficiencies and effectiveness around the system and processes and optimizing those as well. It's a as needed review, so it's not a comprehensive overhaul of the systems and processes because we don't believe they're fundamentally broken, but we are taking the opportunity to improve those where we can see efficiencies in that. And they are, I acknowledge that they are generic comments, but again, just coming back to, it was a review of the existing fees and charges rather than a comprehensive review of the underlying financial policies that underpin them.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Tony. Does that make the situation any clearer at all for you, Pete? Or are you?
I would actually return back to your councillors and ask them whether they thought it made it any clearer to them, because no, understand that I've understand a little bit more that you didn't do a total rethink, but I still don't actually understand. And I think also when you're talking about benchmarking of rates, I think it's probably a fair place to start is look at the consultants that you're employing and seeing where their rates are. That should be a good indication for where you should start. And that's what we provided in the submission. But hey, I'm more than happy to take it on offline and chat about it. It's not the end of the world. And we're happy to engage and discuss more about it. The main concern we have, and it's not on our bigger developers, like this doesn't affect our bigger developers. It's on our 2-lot subdivisions, 3-lotters. It's at boundary relocations where costs can get away very, very quickly if people aren't keeping an eye on process. So someone wants to just do a minor boundary change and they use up all the subdivision consent deposit fee, and then they get another invoice. To me is not really acceptable when we are trying to submit quality applications. We've got to try and look at process to do things better when the risks are low, but also satisfying all the things that Tony has to do on the background. So, yep, happy enough.
The other thing I should probably add as well, I'm not sure if I should say this in front of the councillors, but I've never charged for any of my own time since the time I've been here. So we are entitled to charge for every single hour of every single staff member, but often we do a judgment against that. And so I can say hand on heart that the fees that we are charging out aren't full recovery because we do apply a reasonable test when the invoices go out. So I just wanted to make that point as well.
Great. Look, thank you for that. Now, Graham, did you have a question for Pete?
Yeah, please. Just a suggestion to Tony. You talked about benchmarking with other councils and you said you can't quite remember who they were. Perhaps a council would do the fleshing out of some of those numbers so that we can see those. And the other thing is, Pete, on your last comment, water connection charges are inconsistent and should be charged at the urban rate. Can you just flesh out what you mean by that and what are the anomalies that you're seeking?
Oh, so I sort of asked the question there and I sort of had it answered. When we apply for a water connection in an urban environment, I haven't got the numbers in front of me, the cost is quite a lot lower than what it is if you go in the rural environment. So it jumps from $400 to $700 just for the application processing fee. And what the response come back was fine, and it pretty much said that everything's on the Pukiremu scheme and no one really knows what's happening there. So that's why it takes the time. And I understand that.
I haven't heard the water hazard is not getting through yet, so it must be going okay. Thanks.
Right. Look, thank you for that, Pete. And I'm sorry to rush you because we only have 10 minutes per submission, but thank you for the effort and energy you put into that. And no doubt Tony will follow up with the issues that you raised directly to you. Okay. Thank you very much for that, though. Now, next we have submitter number 20, which is Sue Milner, who of course is no stranger to any of us. So take it away.
Right, you can hear me? Okay.
We certainly can.
Lovely. The Community Board, the Cambridge Community Board, thanks the Council for the opportunity to submit, and we are, I think, fairly happy with most of the responses we've had from the Council regarding recommendations, except perhaps the library fees issue, which is a continuing one. And we are just wondering that maybe getting rid of the library fees could be a good way of immediately reacting to economic conditions post-COVID-19 to our community. So we'd just like to say that the policy of charging for all adult books gets many comments from both newcomers to the town and current residents, and it's a deterrent to many who would use our libraries. Most libraries do have a rental collection, which is something that the Waipa libraries used to have, and in actual fact, I gather that now, just with the fees that are charged on adult books, we're making less money from the fee that goes across all adult borrowing than we did when we had a rental collection. So I think that maybe it is time to rethink this. And adult, but mainly because also the adult borrowing has decreased. Children's and young adult borrowing has continued to increase, and their books are free. But even then, there is a problem because young adults, the high school students, are only allowed to borrow 2 adult books, and a lot of them are using the library books to supplement the books they need for their subjects at school. And for some of them, you know, if they've got 7 subjects and they can only borrow 2 books, it becomes a bit of an issue. Well, it's not so much that they can only borrow 2 books, but they have to, for free, out of the adult collection. It's then they've got several subjects. They want to get, say, 5 books out of the library. They're having to pay that 50 cents for each book. And for a teenager, that can be a bit of a problem. Yeah, and for some adults, it is a problem. I have been told that we do have people who arrive at the library who literally cannot afford to pay the 50 cents, even those with a community services card, which get a discount. They're virtually weighing up 2 books, 50 cents each, or $1 for a loaf of bread. This is distressing for the staff and as well as for the client. So I think we need to, it's a time that we should be thinking about some of our residents who, in these times where things are going to be a little more straitened, we should be able to do better than that. In the future, yeah, so I just think if we could relook at this fee charging, we're the only library that does. If we have a rental collection that covers those most recent and latest books that everybody wants, just as most libraries in this country do, we'd probably be better off. It would mean we've still got a large supply of books that could be borrowed for free, and I think we might find adult borrowing might go up, and it certainly did go up, particularly the e-books, which people can put onto their phones and all sorts of things over the COVID-19 lockdown. There was something else, sorry. So in the future, you know, books are going to be a luxury for a lot of people. So I think we really need to look at the importance of the books for our communities. In 1949, UNESCO published a public library manifesto to establish the importance of libraries on the United Nations agenda. And I think it's a pretty important manifesto and one we should all be thinking about. The library is a prerequisite to let citizens make use of their right to information and freedom of speech. Free access to information is necessary in a democratic society for open debate and creation of public opinion. And I think that's something that we perhaps should take note of. So that's our bit on why we would like to see the fees for adult books dropped. We're quite happy to have a special rental collection, as other libraries do, but this blanket 50 cents for all adult borrowing we think is unfair. And the fact that adult borrowing has dropped considerably since that fee was brought in. So I don't think we have anything else to say on that. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Sue. Just had a message here from Marcus. He said he agrees with your statements about library fees and it's making reading available to everyone. That's important. So those are his comments. Have I got any other questions or comments? Roger, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sue, thank you very much for your substantial submission. I enjoyed reading it, and I did feel that it reflected a lot of the views of the community within Cambridge. So thank you for putting that through. I'd just like to particularly make comment on the parking paragraphs that you have in the submission. And really, I do understand the last comment of the frustration that you're showing, that you're aware of a parking survey that was carried out by council, but as yet has not seen the results of that survey. And I think I can reflect the comments of the 3 past community board members that are now on council, that we had that continuing frustration of not seeing that parking study. And we're still looking forward to seeing it in our current position. So I think, and again, your comments there are well made. So I hope that we can arrange for the community board to see that parking study and have input on it.
That would be good.
Thank you.
I think, Mayor Jim, did you have a comment to make there? You're muted, so you may have to.
Yes, Sue, it was just regarding the library books, and we have this discussion just about every year, and it always comes down to the fact that there are no free services. Somebody else is paying for it, and if people can't afford to take out books and you subsidise that, you're taking money off of other ratepayers. And I presume that's a suggestion you're making, that we actively or proactively, I think is your word, compensate for that loss of revenue. So are you suggesting, I suppose we've got 3 choices: we reduce the level of service in the library, we increase the rates to pay for it, or and your third option, I suppose, today was looking at a rental section of the library to try and generate that revenue. So which is your preference?
The rental collection, it's pretty well standard in just about every other library service in the country at the moment. It has been for a long time. It seems to work quite well. People don't mind paying a bit extra to get the latest book as soon as it's released. And you'll often find that there'll be a lineup of people who pay to actually get on the waiting list for that book. And I think that would be my preference. It certainly works in other libraries, and I see no reason why it shouldn't work here when it has worked in the past.
Thanks, Sue.
Any other questions of Sue? Liz?
Yeah, hi, Sue. Thanks for your submission. Hey, I'm just interested in your thoughts around the destination playground that was mentioned at the end of your submission. I'd be keen for the community board to maybe agenda this in your meetings in the future, and perhaps give us some suggestions of where you think it might be suitable, because that, I'm sure, is going to be a great debate. So I'd be interested in, and the community board kicking that off with some suggestions.
Yes, that would be good, because already I think people have ideas, and at the same time I'm getting people telling me that for the Lake Te Akutu submissions, lots of people are saying, don't put a playground there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm hearing the same. So
yeah.
Now, Graham, Councillor Weber, did you have a question for Sue?
Yeah, thanks, Sue. Good to catch up. I was wondering if you'd seen the letters to the editor in the Waikato Times saying that the 50-cent charge was the best deal in town.
No, because I only get the Waikato Times on Saturday.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
It could be, but I did have a very interesting conversation yesterday with Hamish Wright, who is one of our leading booksellers, and he is all for dropping the library charge. He feels that anything that gets people reading is a really good thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's not.
I did ask Ken to give us some figures, and it's $176,000 in revenue.
Yeah, well, I think it would be interesting to see how other libraries in the country are still running rental collections, and I don't think they'd be doing it if they thought it wasn't a good deal, rather than charging for the books.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Sue. Look, thank you so much, Sue, and thank you to the Community Board for the efforts and contributions they've made in terms of their submission. It's really helpful and very important in terms of our deliberations. So thank you. Now we move on to our next submitter, which is Janie Taylor. I'm sorry, we're a couple of minutes late, Janie, but you've been sitting there waiting patiently. For councillors, Janie's submission appears on page 38 of the second appendix. If you're working off those ones, actually it's 38 on both. Welcome, Janie, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Just checking that everyone can hear me before I launch into my spiel.
Yes.
Wonderful. As Susan has mentioned, my name is Janie Taylor. I'm very lucky to live and work on our family farm, which is situated at the top of Mangakawa Hill. And as you will have read my submission, that relates to the issues that we have been having over several decades now in the Mangakawa Scenic Reserve. Thank you very much for taking the time to read my submission and for listening to me today. I very much appreciate it. As you will have read, the Scenic Reserve holds a very special place in the hearts of our family. Many of my friends and other family members have visited the reserve on several occasions over the years, and I know that it is a very special place for many people in Cambridge. The three key points that I would like to reiterate relating to my submission, and I know it was lengthy, are around protection. Firstly, protection of the space itself, protecting others that wish to use the space and ensuring that it is safe for them to do so. Secondly, protection of a heritage space. Some of the buildings that are left in the Scenic Reserve are now 130 years old, and they are constantly being damaged and desecrated. Thirdly, protection of the people that live there. I will just share with you a personal comment, which is one of my earliest memories, was waking up to the sound of loud hammering on the door and loud voices outside my family home when I was 4. It turned out to be a group of drunk men who had crashed their car off the side of the grass in the reserve and who were asking my father to come up and pull out their car with his tractor. This is at 3 in the morning in a dark, cold, rainy winter night. My father acquiesced because he felt that he was going to be subject to more trouble if he didn't meet their request, and it would be fair to say that this was a very common occurrence throughout my childhood in the 70s and 80s and later in the 90s when I was much older. My father going up, starting a tractor and pulling out people that he felt would further vandalise our property if he didn't give in to their requests. I've listed several pages of what we've encountered over only the last 18 months as people that live just below the reserve. And it's fair to say that I'm very saddened to see this area so neglected and so unloved. And I think it's time to review the access policy for it. I'm not sure how many of you regularly visit the reserve, but I just went up there again this morning for a walk with my children before school and found that overnight there had been people driving up beside the large concrete reservoirs, damaging the grass, damaging the ground, more graffiti on the buildings, more broken glass in front of our gates, and rubbish strewn everywhere. This is an everyday occurrence for us. As Jenny from Neighbourhood Support has stated, more and more people are troubled with drug use in our community. And in short, we feel that the space that we have to work within and live beside is a space that's been, where illicit behaviour will be ignored and condoned. I'd really like you to consider allocating some funds to closing the reserve during the hours of nightfall, which is when it appears to us that 90% of these problems and the difficulties that we're encountering take place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Janie. I have to confess, I've actually never set foot in that reserve, so I'm going to make it my mission now to actually get up there when time allows. So it sounds like a beautiful place. Look, have I got any other questions out there or comments from any councillors of Janie? Liz?
Yeah, hi Janie. Look, thanks for your submission. I was interested to know, have you been working with any councillors or staff on these issues specifically over the last few years?
Yes, in my submission I said that my last contact was with Jane Blackmore when we talked about the possibility of having a locked gate similar to, I think it was Waipoki Park. We have dealt with Max Ward over the years through Parks and Reserves. We also had Mr. Brian Mayo, who the reserve is named for on Thornton Road, who used to live up here, who spent a huge amount of time maintaining the reserve, and he used to work directly, I believe, with members of the council to try and get something done. Yeah, we've spoken to many people over the years.
Yeah, but no Cambridge councillors as such, because yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to put my hand up, Janie, and work with you and meet you up there, and any other councillors that might be interested in it as well. I think we need to visualise it, we need to see it, understand a little bit more about the actual area that you've got the concerns around.
That would be wonderful. I'd love to make that appointment to do so.
I have your number.
Yeah, I'd be willing to join in that with you, Liz.
Great. Look, are there any other? Phil and Mike are both in as well. Mike, have you a question?
Yeah, just a statement more so, Jamie. I sort of go up there almost every morning. I'm not right up the reserve itself, but we walk up there 6 mornings out of 7 sort of thing. I totally understand what you're saying. I take my family up there too. And over lockdown, it actually was shut down for a period of time. I think it was our car up there or something. I don't know if that's why it was shut down, but it was nice and quiet. And yeah, hey, a gate like Waipuki, just an absolute no-brainer to keep the riffraff out of there at the inappropriate times. It's also a risk when they do go up there early in the morning or evening. There's still some people cycling and walking, and these tend to be the people that just don't give a toss about anyone. So yeah, happy to help as well.
I did make the point in my submission that while the reserve was closed over the COVID-19 lockdown, we're not actually sure why that was, but it was greatly appreciated. But it was only 3 days after that lockdown was lifted that a stolen car was reported in the reserve, having driven up the bank. So it is well known amongst certain factions of society that the reserve is a place that is available for open slather and poor behaviour.
Just adding, sorry, one more thing. A knock-on effect from that is when the cars come back down the hill in the evening, they tend to do massive bloody great donuts down on the corner of Thornton Road, Mangakawa French Pass, and they're absolutely speeding. If they couldn't go up there, it would actually save not just the reserve, but a whole lot of hassle for the whole area.
I completely agree.
Great. Look, thank you for those comments.
Sue?
Now, Jim,
Sue,
is
Graham.
you somewhere there? Oh, no, Graham, yes.
Right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
thank you. Hi, Mary Jane. Graham Webber here. We've had a few complaints during the Community Board Rural Tour meeting in the Te Miro Hall about this. And we actually, as a group, go up there and have lunch. My question to you is, would there be an effect on the access to the telecom towers if it was closed during daylight hours? Would that become an issue?
No, sorry, I'm not suggesting that it's closed during daylight hours. I definitely think it should be open during daylight.
Sorry, I mean dark hours. I mean between daylight. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
My
but is the requirement for those people to service that at any time during the hours of darkness?
Well, currently all of their gates are locked because of vandalism to their premises, so they would need a key and they would need to have access, I assume. Currently, we have been told that repeater station is not actually active, and so I'm not sure how much access they require on a regular basis, but yes, there would be a requirement. There is also, I believe my neighbour, Chris Gardner, has made a submission, and he has contractors on his land, which is also at the top of the hill, that may need access, there will be people that require access, but I think the people that don't require access are the people that are causing the damage.
Yeah. I know Chris's farm comes out at the top there. I know Chris well, but the main access, of course, is down where his home is. But I am familiar with that, and I was just wondering if there's any other farmers affected coming in and out to access the top of their farm as well.
It's only ourselves and Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Graham. Does anybody else have a question for Janie? I think that's probably about it. Well, I'm glad that Liz, Phil and Roger will all meet with you offline and progress it further if they can. That would be a really good progress for you if that's at all possible.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Janie. Thank you for your time. Now we're moving on to our next submitter, which is Ange Holt on behalf of the Te Awamutu Community Board, slightly ahead of time because I'm not sure whether any of you are aware, but the submitter between Janie and Ange has withdrawn her option to speak to us today. So Ange, I saw you there somewhere. There you are. Yes, there you are. I take it away. We're at pages 22 to 26 if you're working with Appendix 2, by the way. Welcome, Ange.
Thank you, Susan. Tēnā koutou e tēnei ahi ahi. I am Ange Holt, Chair of the Te Awamutu Community Board, and would like to speak to a couple of points on our submission. Firstly, I would like to reaffirm our support for Council in regard to the changes needed in the annual plan due to the impact of COVID-19. Certainly don't envy your position on that one. In addition, I would like, on behalf of the board, to thank all the staff for the awesome job they did helping to keep Waipa safe and informed alongside the Western District Civil Defence during lockdown. An important part of our submission is the George Street car park. Te Awamutu Community Board has been working at getting improvements made to this area of town for at least 3 terms, and we're pleased to have received in November 2019 a plan for some of the suggested improvements to be made, including a raised pedestrian walkway to the toilet to help slow the traffic and make it safe for those crossing on that little corner. This, I understand, needs further financial support from Council, and we would like to recommend its inclusion. How someone has not been seriously hurt just there is really good luck rather than good management, as lots of cars do go round there at some speed. We would also like to see further funding allocated via the annual plan or into the LTP to sort this area out once and for all. There needs to be a footpath from McDonald's down to the warehouse, and Tony and Angela Rowland are very open to assisting. We need angle parking and some directional arrows to get the traffic flowing in a logical manner. There are constantly near misses down there, and all the shop owners will support this. Last year we did a small survey on Facebook and had considerable discussion with the community, who are also keen to see this happen. As our population grows, the congestion and confusion in this space is only going to get worse if we don't do something about it. And I see there is 4.1 million in the LTP under Project T9 for town centre parking. So can some of this be tagged for George Street car park precinct? Footpaths, in addition to a submission, we'd love to see an improved way of being able to give the community some sort of timeline in regard to when a footpath is going to be repaired. As a community board member, it's really frustrating when we're told it's going to be done, and 18 months later down the track, that piece of footpath is still not repaired, and we have members of the community coming back to us saying, I thought you said it was going to be done. I understand it is a little tricky, but with today's management software, I find it hard to believe that a solution isn't relatively simple to find. On the car parking front, I think that's a hot topic across both towns, Cambridge and Te Awamutu, and it is something that's continually raised with us by the community. The options we've included in our submission from us are based on feedback, and we're delighted to see that there will be marked spaces and time limits in the CBD areas. I see in a recent press article it stated that studies have shown there are enough parks, which is great. However, it doesn't actually address the perception and the reality that people cannot get a park due to them being frequently taken for longer periods of time by people who work in the CBD. We are a service town with a rural community who scoot in, do a job or two and scoot out, and we need some parking spaces to reflect this. We believe if there were some 10 to 15 minute parks scattered along the street and at least some monitoring, then this would be a help. We also strongly recommend the use of the space in Churchill Street to provide some temporary parking for people working in the CBD. Visiting the event centre and the hub, we believe this is an ideal midterm solution, and as long as it's promoted as such, the community is capable of recognising this is not a permanent solution. Usually it is just a mess with piles of metal, wood chip, or even slabs of concrete piled down there. The town entrances, this is something that's been on the cards for many years and something Community Board has been advocating for at least 3 or possibly 4 terms, and it's time it got bumped up the ladder. And our Community Board would like to continue to be involved by working with the community to help bring their recommendations to the table. The Te Awamutu Community Board are keen to work with Council for the benefit of our community and help reduce some of your workload where we can be of assistance. I have a board made up of people who are really passionate about our community and want to get stuck in and just do stuff. We're really keen, amongst other projects, to support the environment through recycling initiatives, and we'll be putting forward a request in due course for permission to pursue these. Over the past 12 months, we've seen some great improvements in communication from Council, keeping us better informed and able to work more effectively. We have a wonderful governance team who do their best to keep us on task, and I would like to finish by thanking them for the excellent service that they provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ange. That was a really comprehensive rundown on some of the issues that we deal with quite regularly on community boards. So thanks very much for that. Does anybody else have any comments or a question to wield at Ange about the Te Awamutu Community Board submission in particular? No hands. Oh yeah, Andrew.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, thanks for that, Ange. That was a really good submission and quite clearly setting out the points that you'd like to see addressed, and I very much would too. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Just through the chair, just like to reiterate that Ange professionally well presented and some pretty basic points there that should be able to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Lou, did you have a comment to make? Oh, you're muted.
You're very, very professional. Well done from Ange. That's really, really well done. The one thing I just didn't see in there was the idea of utilising their taxi space during the day, where the taxis don't park there during the day, as a drop-off zone for our couriers. It was in the actual write-up, but I think that's a very, very essential thing. The idea of having designated drop-off zones, even using the back of the shops perhaps, you know, for the couriers to come in behind the shops rather than use that Main Street parking. Good ideas, but we can all work on those.
And once again, you know, community board would love to be involved with those things. And I believe there's businesses with extra spaces as well that maybe we could utilise. That might just mean a bit of thinking outside the square in some places.
Thank you again for your report.
Thank you. Now, Bruce, did you have anything to say there? Were you waving your hand around?
I was, but I sort of gave up. And you mentioned about the town entrances, and that's been a sticking point for quite a long time. Have you, as a community board, got any more better ideas to how to push that or get it going? I know, as from council point of view, we've talked about it, but nothing much has happened.
Well, we're kind of a little bit in the same boat. In my time, it's come up a few times, and Richard Hurrell in particular, it's been his baby. And to the best of my knowledge, there's provision for it in the long-term plan, but things have been waylaid, I suppose, with waiting to see where we're going with the Te Arawai project. But our feeling, well, more mine probably, is that we are far enough down the path of wanting to go down this historical and cultural avenue as an identity for Te Awamutu. So can we start to proceed with this town entrances on the proviso that there's money there to be able to do it? Because it certainly creates a nice feeling for people coming into the town. If the Te Arawai project, fingers crossed, all goes ahead, it certainly would be nice to have nice entrances and it be welcoming for tourists, both domestic and international, that are coming to our town, and to help create a sense of pride for the community as well. So I probably went around the circle bit there, Bruce, but basically it just keeps getting put off for various little reasons that enable it to get shunted back.
Thanks, Ange. No, I don't carry it on. We'll keep thinking about it.
And I'd repeat that for the Cambridge Town entrance space too.
Yeah. Right. Andrew, did you have something to add?
Just a quick comment on that. Yeah, look, Ange, you're perfectly right. It is in the long-term plan, but it's never been in the first 3 years of the long-term plan to date. So when we do the next long-term plan, I guess that'll be maybe a mission for us. But you're quite right also that I think redoing the entranceways and Te Arawai are inextricably linked. We really want to, you know, maximise the impact that Te Arawai is going to have, and will have, you know, on our entrances as well. So yeah, we will keep it in mind, don't worry.
Great, thank you. Now, Graham, did you have a comment to make?
Yes, I was just thinking what a wonderful time to get the signs up on both towns big time. We're making a big, bold effort to try and get that local domestic tourism going, and you certainly need signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good observation, Graham. Does anybody else have anything for Ange in her capacity as chair of the Te Awamutu Community Board? No more. Well, oddly enough, Ange also made a submission as Ange Holt, and she is up next. So Ange, on the assumption that you're happy to proceed with your personal submission now, take it away.
Okay, so personally, I support all the items that the Te Awamutu Community Board have in their submission. I would like to use my time, though, to draw your attention to the problem we have with domestic violence and why it is so important that Council do not delay any longer than absolutely necessary with their white ribbon accreditation. I will speak to the affordable housing item with Sue Goodridge from Kāinga Aroha next as well. So fortunately, Waipa has not seen a significant rise in reported cases of family harm during level 3 and 4 of COVID-19. This does not mean we do not have a problem here. We were just lucky it did not spike. In my role as whānau resilience kaimahi, I've been asked, along with approximately 114 full-time equivalents around the country, to co-design programs and services with community and whānau to create strong, resilient communities where whānau live violence-free and to eliminate violence from the next generation. So why do you think government has decided to spend $15.4 million on preventing domestic violence and whānau resilience? Because we still have these statistics. Police are called to a DV on average every 4 minutes. 1 in 3 women are sexually, physically, or emotionally harmed. 1 in 4 of these women are in the middle to high income socioeconomic bracket. They could be your friends or family. 1 in 8 men are sexually or physically harmed. On average, 13 women, 10 men, and 9 children are killed every year. And that is a drop in the bucket, as 80% of domestic violence goes unreported. If you prefer to think in terms of the economic cost, like Donald Trump, then how does 4.1 to 7 billion per year sound? I'm not asking for your support, I'm making a plea for your support, as this problem needs everyone on board, community, businesses, councils, and councillors. We need to be open, transparent, and supportive so those affected, both victims and perpetrators, feel safe and confident to seek the help they require. We need to change the attitude and behaviours of our communities, and one of the ways to do this is by having Council and other profile organisations lead the way. Having white ribbon accreditation shows our community and other businesses that our Council take this issue seriously and is looking after their, are looking after their staff in the best manner possible. This in turn will encourage other businesses to step up and get accredited, or at the very least make sure all their policies and contracts are in line with current legislation. Waipa businesses will be enabled to show compassion and understanding for their staff that are impacted by domestic violence. I acknowledge the willingness from staff to undertake white ribbon accreditation and to understand COVID turned up at about the time that they had planned to do the white ribbon training, so a delay is expected. I do, however, implore you not to drop the ball and keep putting it off. This is important and must be prioritised. Our LTP under Goal 4, the vision and outcomes for social responsibility, says Waipa offers an excellent quality of life. It's not excellent if you live in constant fear. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Ange. That really put things into perspective a little, doesn't it? So thank you for that. Does anybody, Roger, you look like you have a question for Ange?
Not a question, just a comment in support of Ange. I think this domestic violence issue is neither gender specific, ethnicity specific, or socioeconomic specific. It's across the whole spectrum of our society. So I really support Ange's submission for the concentration on that white ribbon appeal. Well done, Ange.
Thank you, Roger. And the main reason I wanted to raise that as a submission was to get councillors' support for council staff to see this project through. I had a great meeting with Debbie and Steph last year, and they are really supportive. But I just wanted to make councillors aware and hopefully get your support as well to help them with this process.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to Ange's submission? Phil?
Yeah, just briefly, just thanks for making us aware of this and full support of what you're saying to us today, talking to us about. So,
thanks,
right.
Phil.
Wonderful. Great. Right, there being no further comments in respect of that, Ange, how about we move on to the, it's a combined submission, the two of you are delivering, is that correct? Yourself with Sue Goodridge of Kainga Araha Community House, and you're both going to address social housing issues, is that right? Yes. Okay, so for councillors, these submissions appear on Appendix 2, pages 45 to 40, yeah, so 44 to 46 actually, the two combined submissions there. So welcome, Sue, nice to have you join us, and take it away.
Thank you. Yes, as I've mentioned, we'd like to talk about affordable social housing in Waipa. And for me, I'm just unsure how the system works. I would firstly like to congratulate Waipa District Council for maintaining their 130 pensioner housing units. And I suppose my question's more rounded now as to how can we do something to support low-income families? And can council lobby for some of the social housing promised in this month's budget? I realise affordable housing is a big issue nationwide, and as we're entering a recession, these issues are going to be even more difficult. We've got some challenging times ahead. I did look at some research, and from the Tenancy Services website, I see that the current market rent for a 3-bedroomed home in Tiamutu goes from $410 to $460 a week, and in Cambridge, the market rent is $460 to $530. And yes, I'm lucky to own my own home, but our family would struggle to pay $410 a week. And I'm not sure if in our circumstances, the bank would actually lend us money. I do see in 2019, Kainga Ora had 217 state houses in Waipa, and I'm not sure if this has increased or not. From the Ministry of Social Development website, I saw that in March 20, the current wait for a state house nationally is over 16,000 people. With priority A is defined as at risk, and that's over 14,000 people, or B, a serious housing need of almost 2,000. And from this wait list, in the Waipa area, we've got 76 families looking for houses. 66 are priority A, which is the at-risk group, and 10 are in the serious need category. And even to get on this list, you have to stipulate 3 areas, so you can't guarantee to stay in the Waipa area. So a big upheaval if you've got children settled in local schools and you've got to rebuild your own support networks. And I do see that the government, or Kainga Ora, are committed to 75% of the 8,000 houses that they're looking at, and 25% other social providers. I'm just unsure who these other 25% are. So many of our clients at Kainga Araha are marginalised, low educational attainment, poor health, mental illness, low socioeconomic status. So to sum up, they're the first to be fired and the last to be hired. So can the council lobby for some of the 6,000 homes promised in this month's budget? Thank you.
And just to add to that, I would like to refer again to the LTP, where housing affordability concerns are listed as an issue under the strategic priorities and is considered as a medium-term priority. So that's fantastic to see. We would like to see this bumped up the priority list in terms of preparedness. I can't say the word I want, preparedness. Is that a word? For creating affordable housing. That we work together to find innovative ways to solve this problem by knowing what resources are available for us to use, whether they be from central government, community-minded business opportunities, or creative ways to help our people buy their own home. We need to be ahead of the competition, so we are prioritised to access opportunities as they arise. So, for example, the 6,000 homes that Sue spoke of from Kāinga Order. Then council needs to work with organisations in the community that can access the data we need to make informed decisions and be on the pulse to get the latest updates from government around this issue. It needs to be a co-design process with the community. The social responsibility goal in the LTP states utilising the knowledge and resources within Waipa for the benefit of the whole community. So let's see that in action and have Waipa Council show leadership and innovation around creating affordable housing in Waipa. That's us.
Thank you, Ange. And so very thought-provoking. I think, Roger, you have your hand up there. Have you a comment or question for the ladies?
Yes, thank you very much for that submission. I think I can assure you the council are very much thinking about that issue of social housing, and particularly the committee that was the Pensioner Housing Committee has now been extended to include social housing and affordable housing, all of which are very important to develop a balanced community. So I certainly thank you for that submission. Good.
Thanks, Roger.
Well, Sue, I think, can I just say something? Graham,
Absolutely.
I think we've got some better news, actually. The resource consent is underway in Cambridge Road, just north of the Pack and Save in Te Aumuru, and also for 16 units just off Shakespeare Street at Vale Court. So that being underway is a huge step ahead.
Absolutely. I think our pensioner housing is really well looked after. So, you know, we've got, as Sue pointed out, you know, we're really happy and comfortable with that. It's starting to look to where we can be prepared to help our young families, because they really are struggling. You know, when you consider a cheap house in Waipa now starts at 500,000, and as Sue pointed out, you know, you're getting rents up to $500. These people are just, you know, they really are on the bones of their butts and have nowhere to go. And that's really what we're looking at addressing. And Roger, I was aware of the housing group, but my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, that it is made up of council and councillors. It's not involving any community groups at this point.
Andrew, did you have a comment to make about that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that is correct, Ange. Read the housing group. And look, yeah, housing and affordable housing is on our agenda. The issue we have is, and we are in fact tasked with the 4 well-beings that local government has been given by central government, and I think which probably pretty much all councillors agree with. We've been tasked with social well-being. The thing is, we're not funded for it, and so, you know, the reality is we really are hamstrung until we could if we could convince our ratepayers to put our rates up by 20 or 50%, we could do something. But as it stands at the moment, central government is the funder, and we are very restricted in what we're able to achieve because of that.
Yeah, and we do completely understand that aspect of it, Andrew, and that was why we were speaking more to setting up, you know, a committee or a group that can just have us be prepared, so that if those houses become available, they're not stuck trying to get resource consents, or there's not land air tag to be available to be able to put homes that would be suitable for young families. So yeah, I want to be very clear, we're not asking for council to come up with money or expecting ratepayers to start forking out lots of money to pay for it. I mean, that would be wonderful, but that's not the reality. But what we would like to see happen is that our council is prepared, that we're leading, and that we're trying to find ways of creating affordable housing within our means and being ready to take those opportunities when they pop up, rather than being the last cab off the block and missing them and find they all went to Matamata, Piako or Ruapihu because they're on the pulse and they're doing something about it and are ready to move when the opportunity's there. So that for us is really an important message to get through. But thank you for your comments.
And if I could just quickly comment, and really it's in line with Andrew's comments, and I suppose I suppose it got to the point, and I think probably a lot of the councillors has as well, is if we actually want to do anything in Waipa, we've got to do it ourselves. We certainly don't get support from central government. They actively discourage council, seems to me, to be getting into the social housing and retirement housing for that matter. And on top of that, and I know the cases that I don't specifically, but I know cases that you're referring to actually exist in our community. But Waipa, I was going to say unfortunately, but I suppose we'd have to say fortunately, has got one of the lowest, if not the lowest, social deprivation indexes in the country. So when central government look at where they're going to put all of their social housing investments, they go to areas with a high social deprivation, and Waipa misses out. And so we're almost the authors of our own misfortune when we've got such I suppose, a secure community that we live in. But that doesn't get around the specific cases. We've all got spots in the community and families that really need a lot of help. But in terms of looking at the overall government picture, we don't feature at all. A real challenge.
The invisibility of it all. Yep. Yeah. Look, hey, Ange and Sarah, I presume are there any other comments for these two ladies? No, I can't see anybody's hands waving around. Oh, Liz. Yep.
Yeah.
Liz.
Look, hey, just wanted to thank you guys. I guess from my perspective, I always feel that as a council, we actually could be doing more in this space. You know, as much as I understand that, you know, this is more of a central government thing. I just feel that if we wanted to do more, we could do more. And I just acknowledge that we haven't been and haven't done a lot in the social development field. So I support what you're trying to achieve. And I really actually would love to see if there's a group that's going to be created out of this, happy to be involved, because I don't think things are going to get better for Waipa. It's only going to, as we grow, we're going to see more and more social issues. So I'd really like to see us take a bit more of a leadership role, to be fair.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Any other comments there?
Oh, I'd just like to add my congratulations to you guys in the job you do. It's hard work, but it needs to be done, and good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
I think that thanks can actually extend across the whole committee. To be fair, you know, your passion for Te Awamutu and its people is pretty evident in the way you both spoke. So, you know, particularly for people who are marginalised and might not have those voices or the wherewithal to find their way through the somewhat chaotic system that is you know, finding houses or finding jobs or finding help or support. So, thanks very much for everything that you guys do. It's not gone unnoticed.
Thanks, Susan, and thank you to everyone for your time listening to us, and all the best with the rest of the submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Right, I believe that is the end of today's list of submissions. It'd be right, wouldn't it be, Sam?
That's correct, Susan.
Yeah, and Jenny, yeah, oh, good, excellent. So I guess we go back to our agenda. And we have that recommendation there appearing on page 5 of our agenda, of our bundle of documents, to receive that report from Graham and to receive and consider paragraph B, and then approve, and then D, approve again. Oh, my eyes are going funny.
Yeah, Chair, we do have some submissions to hear
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
So those recommendations will be dealt with at the conclusion of tomorrow and at the end of our deliberations tomorrow.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So any more formalities for today to be undertaken? No, nothing further?
I suppose
Excellent.
to officially adjourn the meeting to 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay. Excellent. Well, let's adjourn and we will all meet again tomorrow at 9.